All right, everybody, let's get started. Thanks for coming and braving the weather. Sorry it wasn't a nicer day. My name is Zach. That's Stephanie, who just walked out. I'm the sustainability analyst for the city, and she's the community affairs manager. I have no background in aerospace engineering, and I will be giving you a nice talk today about rockets. But speaking personally, I am a huge fan of the aerospace industry and rocketry and what they do, and NASA astronauts and the heroes that they are. And I think this city is no stranger to the culture that has built up around the Cape and what's been going on out there for decades now. So I'm really honored to give this talk and tell you guys about all the cool things that are going on at the Kennedy Space Center right now in the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, and how the city interacts with those agencies and tries to disseminate information to the public so you guys know what's going on and that nobody gets scared when a sonic boom happens because they're really loud. Yeah, with that, let's get started. Okay, so the contents today, we'll go over a brief history of spaceflight, some of the biggest accomplishments. We'll go over the Kennedy Space Center and the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Two different things, commercial crew and SLS, the recent Space Center upgrades, and then we'll talk about several of the companies and agencies that are really spearheading this new space race that we've seen come about within the last decade or so. Everybody from SpaceX, Blue Origin, NASA itself, the U.S. Air Force, Virgin Galactic. We'll talk about the future launch cadence and how that's increasing, and we'll talk about briefly what the city and the county do in preparedness for these launches and should something go wrong with these launches, which occasionally happens. So with that, okay, brief history of spaceflight. I put the biggest accomplishments here in spaceflight's history. There are so many. This presentation should probably be 100 slides long for what it's about, but I tried to cram in the biggest things. October 4th, 1957, we have Sputnik 1 launched, which becomes the first artificial satellite. It was launched by the Soviet Union. January 31st, 1958, Explorer 1 becomes the first U.S. satellite to reach orbit. And then on July 29th, 1958, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, is formed by the United States government, really in response to the USSR's launch of Sputnik. It scared a lot of people back then. Yuri Gagarin becomes the first man in space, launched by the Soviet Union on April 12th, 1961. And then May 5th, 1961, Alan Shepard becomes the first U.S. astronaut to reach orbit aboard the Freedom 7 capsule. September 12th, 1962, John F. Kennedy delivers his famous moon speech, challenging NASA to get to the moon by 1970, which they eventually did. And June 16th, 1963, Valentina Tereshkov becomes the first woman in space. Very cool, launched by the USSR. And then December 21st, 1968, Apollo 8 becomes the first manned spacecraft to leave Earth orbit and orbit the moon. And that was done by the US under the Apollo program. July 20th, 1969, the famous moon landing by Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. May 1973 to February 1974, Skylab becomes the first US space station and is occupied for a total of 24 weeks between those dates. Not the first space station in history, but the first US space station. The Soviets actually put up a few modules in space before we did. July 17th, 1957, the US and USSR do a joint docking mission with Apollo and the Soyuz spacecraft. This would be Apollo's last mission, and the Soyuz spacecraft is actually still in use today, amazingly. It's what currently brings US astronauts to the International Space Station. April 12th, 1981, the first space shuttle launches from the Kennedy Space Center. That would be the shuttle Columbia. February 1986 to March 2001, mankind's first modular space station is constructed in orbit. That's the Mir space station. That was Russia's doing. The US did launch shuttles there, though. And when I say first modular space station, I mean there were pieces put together to make a space station. November 20th, 1998, first module of the International Space Station, or the ISS, is launched by Russia. And April 28th, 2001, Dennis Tito becomes the first space tourist when he visits the ISS after funding his own trip. He is widely regarded as the first true space tourist in history, which is important for this presentation because of the private industry component that we'll be talking about. May 5th, 2012, SpaceX's Dragon cargo capsule docks with the ISS, becoming the first private spacecraft to do so in history, and the SpaceX is a US company. Okay, Kennedy Space Center, KSC, and the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, CCAFS. Two different things. Kennedy Space Center, NASA operates its two pads out there, pad 39A and 39B. This pad in the picture is 39B. It is what they call a clean pad, meaning there's really nothing on it. That gives it some versatility. They can put different types of launch vehicles on there, and they have the mobile launch tower come out with a rocket, which should soon be the SLS rocket, to launch from that site. Pad 39A is currently under lease by SpaceX. There's a 20-year lease that was started at the beginning of this decade. They have completely redone the pad, as I'll show you. It's very cool. And then the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station is where there are numerous launch pads located, most of them not in use at this point, but a lot of them are starting to get used again, getting refurbished, so that these companies that are coming in can launch their own rockets. Commercial Crew and SLS. So the Commercial Crew program was started in this decade under the Obama administration. Those astronauts that you see standing in this photo will become the first US astronauts to launch aboard the Boeing Starliner, which is on the left, and SpaceX's Crew Dragon, which is on the right. This will replace, obviously, the shuttles to bring US astronauts back into orbit, and will allow NASA to stop using the Soyuz spacecraft that I spoke of earlier, because we have to pay millions of dollars to get a seat on those three-person Soyuz capsules, which is shared by Russia and usually European astronauts, or sometimes two Russians and an American or so forth. Japanese astronauts as well. But yeah, this is pretty exciting. This is really cool. And hopefully these missions will take flight in the next year. And then we have SLS, the Space Launch System, NASA's successor to the Space Shuttle. A lot of shuttle hardware went into building this rocket. That is the official mission patch of the SLS. It has been delayed for years, frankly. It was supposed to launch in 2017. It is still not launched. They recently finished its construction out in Mississippi, I believe, the Mashhad Space Center. Hope I said that right. But it should be going for testing soon and then be delivered to the Kennedy Space Center next year, where it will hopefully launch again to bring US astronauts up into space from US soil. So some recent Space Center upgrades. The picture on the left is of Pad 39A, which used to launch shuttles, as well as the Apollo program. Now it's under the lease of SpaceX, and they have completely transformed it. That launch tower used to be significantly bigger. Now it's been really stripped down to that core tower section and the lightning rod on the top. They added that arm that stretches out so that crew members can be loaded onto that future capsule that they're building right now and testing. And that erector, that white piece of infrastructure, was not there as well. That helps to lift the rocket up into place. And it also takes it out from the horizontal integration building, which is just off the picture to the south, where they put the rocket together and then wheel it out as one piece and then lift it up. The picture on the right is inside the vehicle assembly building, which is that massive white building that you can see on the horizon for miles. Largest single-story building in the world, incredibly. I don't know if it's true, but I've heard rumors that it's so tall, on humid days, rain showers can form inside at the top. I don't know if that's true, but what you see here are new platforms that were installed to be able to handle the SLS rocket. It actually forms to the configuration of the rocket, so it'll fit perfectly within inside of this. And then there are a lot of other upgrades that I will not touch on, but I threw this one in because this is a big construction project that's being done by Blue Origin, and you can actually see this project from the beach here at Cape Canaveral. If you look just past the Cape Canaveral Lighthouse, you can see the construction of this new launch pad for Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket, which will be one of the most powerful rockets in the world when it's finished. They're building a new launch tower, new lightning arresters, new water tower, and then that building that you see on the left is the horizontal integration facility where they'll put the rocket together. And then that structure on the right, the far right, is where they'll actually test rocket engines. So it's a very multi-purpose facility. So let's talk about some of the companies and entities that are out there at the Space Center right now, getting this new space race off. SpaceX, arguably probably one of the most influential companies of the last decade, have transformed space flight for a lot of reasons, but one of them mainly is probably reusability, in the fact that a lot of their components can now come back and be reused to save money, significant money. For example, the space shuttle itself, of course, was reusable, but the hardware, the two solid rocket boosters were reusable too, but the fuel tank would be discarded. Or with the old Saturn V, all of it was just lost. SpaceX has the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets in use right now. Falcon 9 is on the left, Falcon Heavy is on the right with 2 external boosters. What do we got here? Future launch vehicles will be Starship, and I will touch on Starship in a second. The Falcon 9 has a payload capacity of 55,000 pounds. For usability, the first stage boosters and the fairings, which they are trying to literally catch with a boat and a giant net on the back of the boat. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen, but it's something that they're really trying to do. The fairings come back and deploy a little parachute. Well, it's not very little. And it glides to the ocean where the boat swings in underneath and catches in the net. Very expensive piece of hardware. I think each fairing alone costs $6 million, so if you have the chance to reuse that, that's saving a chunk of change. The fuel type is LOX, which is liquid oxygen, and RP-1, notable cargo. There's a lot of notable cargo for these launches. It's hard to decide. I put in the Starlink satellites, just to touch on what that is. The Starlink satellites are a new constellation of satellites being launched by SpaceX. They've currently done 2 missions with 60 satellites in each launch to build a worldwide internet constellation where you'll be able to sign up to get internet from these satellites. So in a sense, SpaceX is also about to become the world's largest telecommunications industry. Through FCC filings, it looks like they're going to be trying to put over 40,000 of these satellites in orbit within the next few years. There's actually another Starlink mission scheduled for the end of December, and in the second week of January. And is it human rated? Yes, because this is what will take NASA astronauts on board the Dragon crew capsule to space. Falcon Heavy, much bigger, 141,000 pound payload. Reusability, same thing, booster, all 3 first stage boosters, and the fairings, same fuel type. Notable cargo, a Tesla Roadster, if you've ever seen that car. It's a all-electric convertible sports car. This particular one was owned by Elon Musk, who is the founder of SpaceX. And the first mission of the Falcon Heavy, they launched a car into space, and it's still there, doing its thing. A human-rated, no. These are just some photos of SpaceX hardware. The picture on the upper right corner, that's right here at Port Canaveral. That's one of the boosters that came back that lands on drone ships out in the Atlantic, which is really, really cool. These are autonomous. There's nobody on board when this happens for obvious reasons. They can independently control themselves against wave action and try and remain as steady as possible. The vehicle has a very low center of gravity, so when it lands, it's very stable, actually, which you might think is not the case, being how tall it is. And when it lands, there's actually a robot that kind of looks like a giant Roomba vacuum that comes out and fixes itself to the deck so it doesn't fall in heavy seas. They used to not have this robot. They used to have crews go out on a ship, and when it was safe, as quickly as possible, they would go out, get on board, and weld the rocket to the deck so it wouldn't fall off. They don't do that anymore. They actually, as of this week, brought a second drone ship to Port Canaveral in preparation for how many launches they will be doing next year. So there are 2 of these barges right now, right here. The images on the bottom are of Starship, their future launch vehicle, one of the largest launch vehicles that will ever be built by mankind. This is SpaceX's big gamble to get themselves to the moon, to Mars, and beyond for colonization missions. As crazy as that sounds, This is exactly what they want to do with this vehicle. What you're seeing in these photos is only the part that actually leaves the planet. The booster that gets it off the planet is enormous as well. I think it has something on order of between 35 and 40 engines on the bottom of it. So our windows are going to rattle here in Cape Canaveral when that thing goes off. The lower right image is of Starship, where they're currently building it in Boca Chica, Texas. They were also building a model in Cocoa, Florida. The Cocoa facility has since stopped construction as there was a failure in testing of the vehicle that you see in the image right here. During a pressurization test, it exploded. So they're moving on to a new variant that will incorporate things that they learned from the first one to make it better. They hope to have this thing up and running very soon, and they have a paying customer to take it around the moon by 2022. So that's very ambitious, but SpaceX has done a lot of crazy things, so I would maybe believe them. I have this awesome video here. This video shows the first Falcon Heavy launch and the 2 side boosters returning back to Earth. I don't know how many of you were here to see this, but it was quite something to see. And when these come back, they produce sonic booms, so it's quite loud.
And watch for the landing lights deploy at the tail end of that landing.
And that landing burn has started.
The voices you're hearing are of SpaceX employees watching this.
Side boosters, landing legs are deployed.
And the Falcons have landed.
LZ1, LZ2, both side boosters have touchdown. Landing off and we move on to recovery 1 and recovery 2.
So, I don't know about you guys, but that puts a smile on my face every single time. That's pretty cool. And this is a picture of the Dragon cargo capsule that NASA currently utilizes to get supplies to the International Space Station. They just did their 19th launch of this vehicle, and on board were the Mighty Mice, 40 mice that will be used on board for testing to see how muscles behave in zero gravity. They will be returned alive, I was told. Blue Origin, the secretive competitor of SpaceX. They are not certainly as flashy as SpaceX, but they are getting results. Their New Shepard rocket, which you can see right here, actually just had its 12th launch yesterday from a site in Texas, and they also have reusability with this rocket. The booster that the capsule sits on is reused. They are not new anymore. Payload capacity, I could not find that. Reusability, the booster, fuel type, liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. Notable cargo, none. Nobody's been on it yet. They have only really used it for testing. They hope to put people on this very soon, paying customers on the order of about $250,000 a seat. So get your tickets now. And it is human rated. The capsule is very roomy from the inside, and it has a lot of windows, so you get the best views. But it's relatively small. It's only about 59 feet tall. But Blue Origin has much bigger plans with their New Glenn rocket, which is this guy right here. This thing is the size of a skyscraper and will be able to do what SpaceX has already done in that it will land its first stage booster on a ship that will have its home port here at Port Canaveral as the payload goes off. This is a super heavy rocket that will be able to get stuff out of Earth orbit and to Mars, the moon, and so forth. It's very large, as I said. You can see the size comparison with the Saturn V on the far right and the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy on the left. Pretty big. The United Launch Alliance. This is a launch provider that's been around for decades. This is actually not new, but they were the king in town. They had a monopoly on the launch service for sure, but now they are being upstaged by companies like SpaceX, and they're having to adapt to the costs that are going down associated with SpaceX launches. So their current vehicles are the Atlas V and the Delta IV Heavy. That is an Atlas V in that photo right there, which has many different configurations. You've probably seen one that looks a little different. They can put more boosters on it. It's very cool. Future launch vehicles, the Vulcan rocket. This one should have a component of reusability, unlike the Atlas V and the Delta IV Heavy. They will try and reuse its engine section. And what the research that I did, they will try and do this by having it eject off the rocket, deploy a parachute, and a helicopter will come and snag the parachute before it lands in the ocean, and then tow it back to shore. Crazy stuff. The Atlas is 191 feet tall, and then the Delta is 236 feet tall. The Atlas V has a 45,240 pound payload capacity, reusability, none. Fuel type, RP-1, LOX, and LH-2. Notable cargo, the Curiosity rover, which is currently on Mars right now, launched in 2011. And is it human rated? Yes, because this rocket will be the one that will bring the new Boeing capsule with American astronauts on board to space. Delta Heavy, payload capacity, much bigger, 63,470 pounds. Reusability, none. Fuel type, LOX, RP-1. Notable cargo, the Orion crew capsule in 2014, which is NASA's new launch vehicle. And then human rated, no. This image on the left is of Boeing's capsule. It is on the pad right now. It's there waiting to go off on December 20th, so look forward for this one. This is the capsule's first test. It will be unmanned, and it will dock with the space station for about a week. So all the best to them. The picture on the right is of the new Vulcan rocket I talked about. Very cool name. This will have much more capability, and will, from what it seems like, will basically combine the attributes of the Atlas V and the Delta IV to be able to be one vehicle. And there will be some reusable components for this as well. This will hopefully be launching either in 2020 or 2021. Sierra Nevada Corporation. These guys don't have a rocket, but they do have a vehicle that's meant for orbit, the Dream Chaser. Beautiful spacecraft, basically a mini space shuttle meant to carry cargo to the International Space Station. It's about 30 feet long, 12,000 pounds of payload capacity. The space plane section at the front is reusable and meant to come back. The trunk, as it's called, the part with the solar panels at the back, is not reusable. Fuel type, I couldn't find. Notable cargo, none, hasn't launched yet. And human rated, no. These guys actually tried to make a human rated version of this, but SpaceX and Boeing beat them with their capsules. They did not make the NASA's, for whatever reason, they did not get chosen by NASA. And there's just another picture of it. Very, very, very nice little spacecraft. So Vector, this is a new company that is going through some financial trouble right now, but they do intend to do launches from the Cape. It's a very small launch vehicle. They have the Vector R and the Vector H. The Vector R only has a payload capacity of 132 pounds. The other one, 640. This is for nanosatellites, very small satellites that can be built by colleges, high schools, small organizations to get science packages in orbit and do some testing. I mean satellites that could fit in your hand, like loaves of bread, very, very small. Neither of them are human rated because a person literally couldn't fit on them. And not much else is known about them right now because they are in the very early stages of testing. This was one of their test rockets out in the Mojave Desert, but they do intend to be here. Here's another picture of their rocket. Firefly Aerospace. Current launch vehicles, none, but they intend to, this is another one of those startups, they intend to launch the Firefly Alpha and the Firefly Beta. The Alpha is 95 feet tall, the Beta is 101.7 feet tall. Again, that small launch market, that's what they're going for, those smaller satellites. Payload capacity of the Alpha, 2,200 pounds, Beta, 8,820 pounds. Not much I could find on them. Neither of them are human rated, and as far as I could tell, they were not going to incorporate any reusability functions. This is the Firefly Beta, the little bit bigger version. U.S. Air Force. So they operate the X-37 space plane. There's two, as far as we can tell. It's extremely secretive. Most of the program is classified. It operates out here at Kennedy Space Center. The X-37 is only 29 feet long, so again, kind of like a mini space shuttle. The payload capacity, we don't know. It's classified. The entire vehicle is reusable. Fuel type, I don't know. Notable cargo, we don't know. It is totally secret. Some people think it is up there spying. Has a telescope inside that when the little payload doors open, they look down on foreign adversaries. Some people think it's testing materials for future spacecraft. Some people think this could be used as a space-based weapons system, but we really don't know. These things have been in orbit for years at a time. I'm talking launch times of 600, 700 days. And again, we don't really know what they're doing, but amateur astronomers have seen them in orbit, so we know where they go, but we just don't know what they're doing. And in the photos that you can see from these amateur astronomers, it looks like there's a radiator that comes out from the payload to disseminate heat, so at least no radiators in there. This is some photos on the ground. The photo on the left shows it inside a payload fairing. It's a really cool picture. And then these gentlemen here are draining whatever fuel is left, which is hazardous, so they're wearing protective clothing. So NASA Space Launch System, the SLS. This will be the largest rocket in the world when it is completed. And what you see in that picture there is the smallest version that NASA will do. Every version thereafter will probably be more powerful and bigger, depending on what they want to do with it. Hopefully, it will launch sometime either late next year or in 2021. It has gone through multiple delays, and it has exceeded budget a lot. But despite what you think of it, it will be America's return to space, and probably to the moon through NASA's Artemis program. Artemis is a sister of Apollo. That's why they chose that name. NASA intends to land the first woman and the next man, as they say, on the moon by 2024. That's what they want to do. That's a very big goal, and I wish them all the best in doing it, because I would love to see a moon landing for myself. And then after that, to the moon, or to Mars and beyond. The initial payload capacity of the vehicle you see here is 209,000 pounds. Reusability, none, unfortunately. The engines are derived, well, reusable, the engines that on the bottom, there are 4 of them, they're left over from the Space Shuttle program, so they are reusing that into construction, but they will plummet to the sea when this thing is done. Fuel type, LH2, LOX, and then notable cargo will be the Orion crew capsule, which is NASA's successor to the Space Shuttle. Much bigger than the Apollo capsule, be able to fit up to 7 astronauts, although they'll probably only put 4 on board when it's all said and done. And this will be also helping NASA build the future Gateway Space Station. The Gateway Space Station is a small space station that's intended to orbit the moon as a waypoint for astronauts to sit, take a break, do research, and then eventually go land on the moon. The Gateway Space Station has earned international cooperation. Russia said they would be involved with the construction and maintenance, Japan, and the European Space Agency, which is composed of multiple countries. So that is pretty cool. And they will be launching modules on board this. There's another picture of it. That's an artist's rendition. The one on the right, though, that is not an artist's rendition. That is what it currently looks like at the facility, the Michoud facility, where they just recently finished construction on the core stage. You can see the engines right there put in place. And like I said, those were left over from the shuttle. You could see it, the people standing next to it. It is enormous. And then honorable mention, Virgin Galactic. I said honorable mention because they will not have a presence out here at the Kennedy Space Center that I know of, or that I'm aware of. They have their operations out in the west, in the desert. They are a private space tourist company looking to get paying customers into orbit. at a cost of $200,000 a ticket, and a really cool spacesuit. Yeah, you get. I don't know if they get to keep that, but you'd hope so after that cost. And just for reference too, that first space tourist I spoke about, Mr. Tito, way back in the early 2000s, he paid tens of millions of dollars. So 200,000 is a bargain. This launch vehicle right here is called the VSS Unity. It's their second launch vehicle. The first one that they built was called, funny enough, the VSS Enterprise. It unfortunately crashed, and they lost a pilot, which was very sad. But it allowed them to learn, and they built this, and this has had multiple successful flights into orbit, or suborbital flights. They did not go around the planet. They basically went up really high and then came back. But while they were up there, they experienced weightlessness, and were able to show that the spacecraft was successful in doing what it's supposed to do. It's meant to hold 6 people. The entire vehicle is reusable, which is great. The fuel type is a rubber-like compound that's really good at burning, so that's cool. I couldn't really find much more about that. Notable cargo, people. That's pretty cool. We're pretty notable. And then, obviously, it's human-rated. This vehicle is unique in the fact that it is air-launched. It is not launched from the ground. And what I mean by that is it has a mothership. This mothership is called the Eve, and what it does is it takes it up to an altitude, literally drops it, and then the Unity will fire its rocket motor and go up into space as the mothership peels away really fast. And the picture on the left is the Unity coming back after a test flight. The reason they air launch it is it saves on fuel cost. Go up a little bit, already don't have to worry about that. And then I was able to get a really cool video of one of their test launches from 2018, I believe. So future launch cadence. In 2020, we could have upwards of 40 launches from the Cape right here. I could find up to 14 scheduled launches on the list already from the resource that I'm going to give you guys, but up to 40 because SpaceX intends to launch at least 20 Starlink missions alone, not including their paying customers. Because remember, SpaceX, Starlink is within their own business. So, and they plan on doing that about every 2 weeks. So if they can hold to that, we're looking at a very large number of launches. The Air Force that maintains the range out there, they say that they are ready and capable of hosting 50 launches or more a year by at least 2021, which is amazing. That would be like launching pretty much every week. And next year, some notable stuff is the possible first flight of the SLS, probably in Q4 2020, most likely 2021, but hopefully 2020. The Mars rover will launch in the summer. So the Curiosity rover, which is roving around right now, will have a buddy. And then 2020 could finally see the return of astronauts' launches from U.S. soil aboard the Boeing CST-100 Starliner and the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule. SpaceX, of those two companies, SpaceX will be the first one. They're looking to do their first manned mission in Q1 of 2020. That will probably draw hundreds of thousands here. I was at the meeting at the Emergency Operations Center when they discussed this launch, and they were preparing. It was supposed to happen in the summer, but it did not, unfortunately. And they were preparing for upwards of 500,000 visitors to the area for this launch. So, traffic. But that is something to be aware of. City and county preparedness. So, we want to make you guys aware of this stuff. It is something that we live with. There is some noise involved. There's some booms involved. There's traffic involved. And sometimes they blow up. That is the reality of what's happening. Fortunately, it happens very little, and hopefully it'll happen less and less as more of these launches occur and the technology becomes more refined. So we want to conduct more public outreach sessions like this, give you an update about what's coming. And we also want to have these companies visits. We did invite SpaceX to come here today. Unfortunately, they could not come, but they said we want to absolutely come to an event within your city. So hopefully, no promises, but we want to get them to Founders Day this year, which is in February, Stephanie? February 29th, Leap Day. So that would be very cool. So they could come out here and show you what they're doing. If you want launch updates that are very good, the city uses spaceflightnow.com. Spaceflightnow.com has a live stream of every single launch that happens, including launches that happen internationally. So if you want to see a rocket launch from Russia, India, China, South America, they got it all. They will give you live updates as they are occurring for each launch. You can also, of course, check out, if it is a NASA launch, you can check out nasa.gov, where they have continuing coverage through NASA TV of launches. SpaceX always broadcasts their launches with a live webcast, and I imagine that the other companies, once they get started, will do that as well. The city always updates its social media accounts whenever there's a launch, so if you haven't already, you should like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, Nextdoor. You should sign up for a subscription with the weekly update, which you can do very simply by visiting the city's website, which is that link, that second link right there. There's a nice tab. It's highlighted in bright yellow. Sign up for the weekly update. It comes out every Monday, and if you don't want to read it, you can just keep scrolling on your email. And Twitter. Brevard County Emergency Operations Center updates. I highly encourage you to sign up for this one as well, because not only will they tell you whenever they're activated, which they are for every single launch, they will also give you updates about hurricanes and what's going on with that information. So if you text 888-777 and you text Brevard EOC to that number, 888-777, all caps, Brevard EOC, one word, you will get updates immediately about what is going on around the county. This is for rocket launches, wildfires, prescribed burns, hurricanes, you name it. Very good resource. You can go to the links on the bottom right here to also sign up for those updates via the internet. And the bottom link shows the emergency management's page for what happens if there is a launch anomaly. I think I said that wrong. A launch failure. Because the city we follow the county's messaging when it comes to any launch failure, so we defer to them. Really the go-to message on that page, I'll save you the trouble of reading it, is stay indoors until the all clear from the county when it comes. The rockets, when they launch, they go out over the ocean for a reason. If something were to happen, their debris is scattered across the ocean and falls hopefully out of the way of anybody. But with that can come the danger of a toxic cloud of propellant, radiological material. The Mars 2020 rover is nuclear powered. It has a plutonium battery at the back of it because on Mars, you could get solar energy. There have been rovers that are powered by solar panels, but they get dusty, and no one's there to clean them. So they use a nuclear battery, which lasts a lot longer and doesn't need as much maintenance. There's a very small, minimal chance that that will happen, but the case comes. The best advice they gave us is just stay indoors and wait for it to pass. There's already been launches of nuclear material from the Space Center, the 2011 launch of the Curiosity rover, the Cassini spacecraft in 1997. So it's been done before, but that is what they tell you to do. But we always wish them all the best, and hopefully great things come of it. Does anybody have any questions? If so, I have NASA's phone number right here. Just kidding. Yes, sir.
Is there any coordination with the cruise ship companies when these launches? You say they go all over the ocean?
Yes, the range gets closed to any any naval vessel traffic. Nobody should be within the range. So there's a range, right? They call it the Eastern Range. It extends out. Forgive me, I don't know how far, but it's pretty far, where you should not be in. If you are, they will stop the launch. And there are several webcasts that you can watch where you'll hear somebody say, we have a range violation. That's somebody, probably a fisherman or somebody not paying attention, who drifted into the range, and they spotted them, and they said, wait a minute, don't do it. Because God forbid that rocket blows up and that one piece falls on that fisherman, that's it. So yes, they are directed to go south out of the port and stay away until the all clear is given.
And Zach, could you repeat the questions as they come in for
Yes,
the people?
that question was about what do the ships do when there is a launch? What do they do from Port Canaveral? Yes, sir.
Sorry, I didn't catch your name. I came in late. My name's Bob Fisherberg. I live right here by the port. What's your name?
Zach Eichels.
Zach, thank you for doing this presentation.
You're welcome.
One thing I've noticed is that when SpaceX has a launch,
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard to find out if there's going to be a return of the booster and a consequent sonic boom.
Sure.
Does the city of Cape Canaveral or Brevard County know when there's going to be a return? Should there be more publicity about is there going to be a sonic boom or not?
Yes. It is known whether or not they will land here to create a sonic boom. The city, we always put out a message through our social media accounts right here, Facebook, Instagram, saying whether or not there will be a boom. So we always try and get that because they do tell us. So if you follow these, or if you text this number, Brevard EOC at 888-777, they should notify you that there's a boom.
I'm on that, and I've never heard from them if there's going to be a sonic boom or not. It's just hard to find out in the publicized information.
Okay.
Get around it.
Definitely follow, if you can, follow our Facebook page, because I'm the one that, if you ever see a rocket post on our Facebook page, I wrote it. And I'm the one that I always make sure that I include whether or not there'll be a boom or not, because they are extremely loud and very surprising, especially for pets. If you follow that, we'll let you know. And if not, if you don't see it, call us. Seriously. Yes, the question was, what is the publicity around whether or not SpaceX brings their rockets back and create a sonic boom? What's the best way to hear about that? Sir.
What is Blue Origin doing outside of Texas? What do they build there? I mean, they're blasting the rockets off in Texas, but there's a huge facility out there.
That will be their future rocket factory for the New Glenn. That's what they're going to do. So the New Shepard is the one out in Texas. That's the baby version. The New Glenn, the big boy version, that is what will be produced and launched out here at the Cape. If you go by the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, there's a massive new building. It's blue, the color blue. Can't miss it. That is where they will build these rockets. That's what they're doing. Mhm. Oh yes. What is Blue Origin doing in Titusville? Yes, sir. Sure. So a lot of these companies have been moving assets to this area in preparation for all these launches and the construction of their vehicles. So a lot of high-tech industry has arrived, and in doing so has brought a lot of people to come and make that happen. We expect more people to come to the area. We expect more high-tech industry, as I said. SpaceX has a facility in this city, which is really cool. And the county as a whole, we do expect more people to come and live here. I can tell you in Vieira, they're building apartments specifically. They were cited specifically to hold engineers, new engineers and their families that are coming here to manage and build these rockets. So an uptick is a short answer, I guess.
And I will add that Cape Canaveral was named number 12 on Airbnb's top 20 trending destinations in the world.
In the world?
In the world.
Go us. So the question was, what economic impacts will the Space Center have on the area? Has anybody been to the Kennedy Space Center? Very nice. Very cool. So yeah, that's my presentation. I hope it was informative from a non-aerospace engineer. And be sure to follow us on these social media accounts and the weekly update, because we really do try. And if there is any confusion, you can always call us too. You can call myself. You can call Stephanie. So we'll try and get you the information as best we can. Brenda. I don't know. Last time I went, they did. They have a student discount as well. So they do give you a discount if you're a Brevard County resident, which is nice. Senior discount too. Yes, sir.
The space shuttle-ish thing that the Air Force,
Yes, the X-37.
how does that get into space?
Good question. That gets into space on top of a rocket, like you would any satellite. They have used the Atlas V, and they have also used the Falcon 9. So just imagine, excuse my clicking. See the picture on the left, that's inside the fairing. There's one half of the fairing that would be located at the top of the rocket. The another half would come and enclose that safely inside, and then they would be situated right on top, right here, inside that fairing. And then once it gets to the proper altitude, the fairings release themselves in two halves, and it gets detached from the second stage and lets itself get drifts away as the second stage deorbits itself, burns up. And then with little control thrusters, they bring it to a higher altitude, slowly, sometimes fast. And then it just sits there and does whatever it does. But it's really just sitting nose up on the top of a rocket. That's how they get there. They do. They let you know when the X-37 is launching, but they will cut the feed, the live feed, at a certain points because they don't want you to know what orbit it's going to. So usually when they say when the first stage is about to detach, or shortly after it has detached, which is the whole bottom section of the rocket, they will say, okay, looks like we're going to have a successful launch. Thank you for joining in. Bye-bye. Can't let you know what's going to happen next. But they do let you know. It's public information when the vehicle launches, just not where it goes or what it does. So, good question. The question was, how does the X-37 get into orbit? Okay, I think if we're good, thank you everybody for coming. Before you leave, The next launch from the Cape is December 16th, 7:10 p.m. The Falcon 9 will be launching a JC-SAT 18 Pacific 1 satellite, so a telecommunication satellite. That's 7:10 on December 16th. The launch window lasts to 8:38 p.m., so it could launch anywhere inside that time, but they will try and go for 7:10. Then we have, let me see. Probably not, because it's a communication satellite, so they're going to go as far out as they can, and they use as much fuel as they need, so they will probably land it way out at sea. After that, December 20th, the Atlas V will be launching the CST-100 Starliner, Boeing's commercial capsule, for its first orbital test flight, unmanned. That is scheduled for 6:36 a.m. That's an early one. There will not be a sonic boom with that. They do not return the Atlas rockets. And then to close out December, all it says, unfortunately, is late December Falcon 9 Starlink 2 mission. So that one's to be determined. So probably, it might. We'll let you know, because those don't go very high. So if they don't go very high, they usually try and bring it back to the Cape. But we'll let you know. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody. Stay dry. Stephanie, I'm going to shut it down.